All right, everyone, welcome back. Next up, we have Victoria Henderson and Rosalynn Lucas from Midlothian Middle, who are going to be sharing some ideas on how to create engaging content from your students. So Victoria and Rosalynn, we're going to pass it over to you.
Okay, thanks. So we're going to go ahead and screen share. I've lost it. I already messed it up. There it is. There you go. Okay. All right, so we are screen sharing now, and we have for you a couple of ways that we like to package our content for our students. I'm going to start us off with multimedia text sets. These are kind of like hyperlinked Google Docs, just all linked up. I particularly like this tool for introducing a new unit. It really helps hook students into whatever the new content is that I'm teaching for that unit. So a multimedia text set is different types of media combined into one document to provide a unique learning experience. Students are going to do a variety of activities. Variety is really important in a text set. They want to read, watch, listen, and engage with the content. So you'll find and curate different forms of media for them that surround a particular topic or theme. And then students are going to use the information that they learn from those different activities to evaluate and synthesize the information. They're going to form their own opinions about the topic and hopefully then support them with evidence from the media that they experienced. Some of the keys to creating a successful multimedia text set are to make sure that students actually have a chance to work with the information that they're learning and taking in. I like to put in a wonder section because that gives the students a chance to then, after they've learned what you've given them, tell you what else they still want to know. So for this particular one, we were doing some Roman food, and then at the end of it, they got a chance to tell me what else they still wanted to learn about Roman eating habits and dining and Roman food. And then I'm able to tailor where I go next in the unit based on those responses. It's also good to give them a review section that can be either a quiz through a Google form, or it could be something where they are doing an activity. I have 2 activities linked in here using Google Draw where they're matching some things up. And then also there is a quiz there for them to take to sort of prove their knowledge and what they've learned. Choices are a really important part of creating a successful multimedia text set as well. Students can choose where they start their learning. They shouldn't always have to necessarily start in box number 1. This is sort of more like a menu. Teachers can tell students to interact with a certain number of media options to also give them more choice. So maybe you have some students that like to watch videos more than read, and other students might like to read something or listen to something. So I could, in some cases, if it's appropriate, tell students to do 3 of 5 things in a menu box instead of all of them. It just depends on what I need to do in that particular lesson. You can also give students choice in the product that they create. So maybe it makes sense to give them an option between a Google Slide or a Google Draw, or to write a paragraph, depending on what you're teaching at that particular moment. I like multimedia text sets because students are really engaged when they're working on one. It's a very student-driven lesson that allows me to be a facilitator. They can use them in groups where if they're in a group, they are then developing their communication and collaboration skills. I really see increased critical thinking when I do a text set, and it also lets them have control over their creativity when I give them choices. I have a couple of tips for creating them for you. If you're going to create one, a lot of times because of my content area, I need to modify things to make it appropriate for middle school level. So I might make my own Google Doc that I'm then linking in to the multimedia text set. When I'm doing that, and if I want students to do an activity on that Google Doc or Google Slide or Google Draw, one thing that's helpful is to force them to make a copy before they start doing anything in the document. Since I'm not sharing this activity with them through Google Classroom that will automatically make a copy for each student, this kind of gives me a protection level on the document that I've created so no one forgets they need to do that. To do a forced copy, all you have to do is grab the link at the top of your document and change the word edit to the word copy. And then that's going to be the new link that you share with your students. It will automatically force them to make a copy of the document. You can also help spruce up your multimedia text set by changing the background color of your Google Doc. To do that, you're just going to go into the File menu and then select Page Setup, and then you can see that you have the full range of colors to choose from to just give it a little pop of color and help make it more interesting for the students. So I hope that you've been inspired to try some multimedia text sets in your classroom sometime soon. I'm going to turn it over to Rosalynn. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot there were some ideas there. If you need any ideas, there's 2 templates and loads of examples freely shared by other teachers using multimedia text sets in their classes. Okay, now it's Rosalyn's turn.
Hi, so I'm going to share 2 things with you today. The first one I wanted to talk about are self-checking Google Sheets. I use these to let my students practice anything that has a discrete answer to it. This particular one has to do with new verb conjugations. And the students really like them because they get instant feedback. They know right away if they're doing something correctly or not. I like them because it allows the students to work independently. It gives them an opportunity to work through some things on their own and figure out their own mistakes. So it gives them a little bit more ownership of the learning process. Lots of my students get really excited when they see the colors change. It's almost like a game for them. They really enjoy the instant gratification and the visible indication that they're doing something right. And students who finish this who get this can move on to the next activity without having to wait for me to check their work. And I'm free to work with students who really need my help on something they don't understand. And so this is an example. You can see I typically create colored spaces for the students to use when they're typing their answers. When they get the correct answer, it changes colors. You can see there's one that I've typed an answer into and it hasn't changed. So I know right away that I've done something wrong and I need to fix that. It's really important if you create these to make sure the students remember that if they put a space after what they've typed, it's not going to change for them. So I would like to remind them on the sheets to just hit enter and not put a space after so that they can get their responses correctly. So to create these, you're going to go into the Format menu on a Google Sheet and choose Conditional Formatting. And this menu will pop up for you. And then you're going to see that I have changed the cell to whatever cell the students are typing their answer in. It needs to be the cell where the answer is going. I've selected text is exactly from that drop-down menu. And then I type in the correct answer, being sure not to put any extra spaces in there. There are some default colors that you can use when you're doing conditional formatting, but you can also select custom, use the paint can, and you can select from any of the colors that are on Google to create your sheet. And then I like to use add another rule because it maintains some of the formatting you've already done. And then you can just go back in and change the cell number and the correct answer, and then just keep hitting add another rule until you finish. I also like to package content for my students sometimes, and I tend to do this in hyperlinked Google Slides, sorry. It's a good way for me to chunk material together that I want students to work on over time, and then they just have it and they can work on it whenever they have some independent work time in class. I like to do themed Google Slides. This is one that I did January of 2018, so it's a winter snowy theme. In September, I came across this template from Tom Small. That's his Twitter handle, and there's a bit.ly in case you wanted to try to use this template. It'll force you to make a copy of it, and then you can use it on your own. So I packaged some content for my students in October. I updated the map to the newest season of Fortnite, and I just made some additions to it. And I packaged a good chunk of a unit for them in this Fortnite themed slides. I put colored circles on the maps for the different locations where they could drop in. All of those circles are linked to slides in the presentation, and the slides were color coded to be a certain theme, and then all of the slides in that theme are the same color as those little circles. When you click on the circle, you will see that it takes you to whatever slide in the presentation you need to complete your work. Some of the slides were self-contained, so all of the work was just there on the slide. Some of them had links to other things that were shared through Google Drive, or told them to go do something on Google Classroom, or was connected to a listening or something of that nature. There were some flip grids in there as well. You'll notice that every little slide in the presentation has a little picture of the map in the corner. So whatever activity you're working on, when you finish that, you can go back to the map and select the next thing you're going to do. And that just makes it easy for the students to get back and forth and maneuver their way through the slides. I did suggest to my students that to keep track of what they've done, they might want to somehow alter the circles on the map. So you can see one of my students changed them to be red, one of them just filled them in with the colors, but that also gives them a chance to sort of keep track of where they are and what they have left to do. I find that my students really like having this sort of packaged content for them. And they're generally really good about budgeting their time when they have this. It allows them to work independently, and they can choose, again, which things they're going to do in what order, so they have a little more control over their learning. And just really quickly, to hyperlink Google Slides to each other, you can link any text or image or picture in a Google Slide. You can use the link button in the toolbar, or you can just do Control-K. And to link to slides in a presentation, instead of pasting a link in the space like we might normally do, slides in this presentation is an option, and there is a little scroll bar on the side there. You can just scroll down and select whichever slide you want to use in the slide deck to link to whatever item you've chosen. And that's sort of our presentation for today. If you have any questions for us, feel free to email us, and we'll be glad to share information with you.
All right. Thank you, Rosalynn and Victoria, for all of that wonderful information. Loved all the student engagement ideas. Thanks for joining us today. And coming up next is going to be Tammy Putnam from Meadowbrook High School.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.